Okay, so I think now that we're all online, we'll begin. So good afternoon and welcome to this briefing webinar for Cities Alliance staff on the Ecological Sequestration Trust, the Resilience.io model and our role in the Future Cities Africa programme. So we'll begin in a few moments with 5 minutes of introductions to the team. And then Peter Head will give a presentation of about 30 minutes or so, which we will then follow with an interactive question and answer session, which you will be able to participate in via audio. You will be muted throughout the presentation itself, so therefore the question and answer session at the end, you'll need to unmute yourself before you can ask your question. And you can do this using the unmute microphone button at the top in the center of your screen. During the presentation, just take notes of any questions that you want to raise at the end. We may also have a couple of attendees joining online, watching the webinar, but not taking part in the interactive session. And they will be able to submit questions via the question form, which will be answered during the question session at the end. So these questions can be submitted throughout the presentation and they will be monitored and answered at the end. Okay, so I will pass over now to Peter.
We need to do introductions.
Oh, sorry, yes. Firstly, introductions. So my name's Rachel Kemp. I'm the Research and Programme Assistant for the Ecological Sequestration Trust, working within our demonstration regions. I'll pass to Peter.
Good afternoon, I'm Stephen Passmore, Head of Platform Development at the Ecological Sequestration Trust, and I'll talk to you very briefly later on around some of our specific activities within the Future Cities Africa programme.
Good afternoon, I'm Alexander Schmidt. I'm Technical Project Coordinator at the Ecological Sequestration Trust, working with IER and ICL to deliver the platform.
Hello there, my name is Catherine Allinson and I'm the Head of Programme Development at the Ecological Sequestration Trust, subcontracted through Future Earth to deliver the demonstration regions, and very excited about the prospects of working in Ghana.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Andre Head. I'm the Head of Communications and User Experience at the Trust, helping to develop a usable, excellent model.
And Alexa, would you like to introduce the rest of the team in Accra? Alexa? Alexa, I think you're on mute, so you might need to unmute yourself using the microphone button at the top of the screen.
She's doing that, but we can't hear.
She's having difficulties with her sound, so we just need to leave.
Okay, so we think we might be having a few difficulties with the sound at your end at the moment. So we'll move on for the time being to Peter's presentation, and perhaps we can return to introductions at the end.
Can she hear us? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Head. I am the founder of the Ecological Sequestration Trust and now the Chief Executive. And I hope you can see the PowerPoint on the screen. You should be able to see it. So I'm going to present the background to the Trust and the work that we're very much looking forward to doing with you in Accra. And my presentation is in 5 sections, briefly. First, I want to introduce the challenges that are mentioned in the brief on climate, environment, and natural resource issues. Then I'm going to go on and talk about the opportunity to connect global and local actions in Africa to actually support the way forward for inclusive, resilient, low-carbon development in cities, starting in Accra. The main thrust of our innovation really is to turn data observatories into data collaboratories, which is like a collaborative laboratory for making decisions about investments and changes. So I'll explain how that works. And then I want to go on and talk about another innovation, which is in financing of the changes, which can be facilitated using the resilience.io platform. And then finally, I want to share with you what progress we've made in other regions around the world and how we're hoping to set up a knowledge sharing framework which we hope that you will contribute to from Africa. So starting with the big challenges which are referred to in the brief, they're very much behind the creation of the trust. So first of all, on climate change, you may be wondering why we called the trust the Ecological Sequestration Trust. The reason is illustrated on this PowerPoint slide. The total amount of carbon that's cycled by the natural world and humans every year is around 200 billion tons of carbon that goes up and comes down again. And about 190 billion tons of that is recycled by the natural world, by the ecology. That's by the land ecology and the ocean ecology. And what we're doing is actually not recycling, but sticking a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's not coming back down again. So there is a net increase of around 16 billion tons a year in the atmosphere, mainly caused by humans. So the natural systems are overwhelmingly bigger than the human systems, and therefore if we look after the natural systems and maybe get them to sequester a bit more carbon, then actually we may overcome the problem quicker. So that's why we called the trust the Ecological Sequestration Trust, and why we believe that we have to integrate human and ecological activity both in cities and in regions around the cities to have some success. The other big issue, which is obviously the resource issue, is that over the last 100 years, as the population of the world has gone up by a factor of 4, we now only have around 2 hectares of land for every person on the planet to provide our food, to provide our water and energy, and to absorb our waste. Whereas 100 years ago, we had about 8 hectares per person. And in many developed countries, we're now living as if this hasn't happened, and are using far more of the Earth's resources than are actually available. And this is beginning to destroy the natural world at a very, very fast rate. And our health is completely dependent on the health of natural systems to provide the air, provide water, to provide food, and therefore we're beginning to undermine our ability to live successfully on the planet, and that has to change. On this slide, I've illustrated where Accra is in the spectrum of what is called ecological footprint, which is actually that description I've just given you, which is the amount of land that's needed to support the supply of food, energy, water, and absorb waste. As you can see, Accra is at a relatively low level compared with developed countries on the right-hand side. So the question for Ghana and Africa is whether the development path follows what all other countries have done, which you can see the dots going up on the right-hand side. So as the Human Development Index grows, as we improve education and health in our countries, what's happened is that there's been a massive explosion of resource consumption around the world, which has taken us to unsustainable levels. The grey box at the bottom right-hand corner is what we call the ecological age paradigm. So if in Accra and Ghana it's possible to move to the grey box without massively increasing ecological footprint, then actually Ghana and Accra will have a very resilient and sustainable future with low carbon emissions and a much greater stability. So that's what we call the transition to the ecological age, and very few countries have managed to do it so far. And so what we're trying to do is to support Accra to be a demonstrator of this paradigm shift, so the rest of the world can learn how to do it. So I call this a transition from the agricultural to the ecological age, missing out the industrial age model of massive resource consumption, which means that people can live at lower cost and everything can be cleaner and healthier so that people can have a happy life. And it's very much to do with resource systems and integrated urban and rural resource systems. And that, therefore, is why we've created resilience.io to enable cities around the world to begin to understand how to achieve this paradigm shift. So now coming on to the connection between local and global. Around the world, many organizations and institutions are trying to help achieve this transformative change. And of course, as you know, Accra has been recently appointed as one of the 100 resilient cities which are working together to actually try and achieve this shift. And resilience is about the capacity of individuals, communities, organizations within a city to survive, adapt and grow, no matter what kinds of stresses are imposed from outside. And Accra laid out the problems that it actually is facing in aging infrastructure, worrying about disease, worrying about flooding from the sea and from the land, worrying about infrastructure failures and instabilities, the lack of affordable housing, pollution of the environment caused by all sorts of pollutants, and the social inequity. So the program of the 100 Resilient Cities is about leadership, about addressing health and well-being, the economics and the society, and the infrastructure and environment. And what resilience.io is doing is providing a platform to enable all of these to be addressed in a holistic way. So in the end, it's about food, it's about raw materials, it's about energy, and it's about water. So what we're planning to do is to gather data about all of those things in the city at the moment, and then provide a platform that enables scenarios to be looked at to improve resource efficiency, to reduce pollution, and to allow people to live a healthier, happier life at lower cost. When we started in the Trust, we decided that this had to be undertaken at a certain scale, and we believe that is in a city-region scale where we integrate both the urban and rural systems together, as illustrated here. And in order to move forward, it's necessary to gather regional data, to develop knowledge, embed integrated planning into the way forward, and build regional capacity and confidence to take action to attract investment and move forward. And all of that, as I said earlier, involves uniting the economic, social and environmental perspectives and shaping interventions to address what is often a fairly complex set of objectives going forward. Now, cities around the world are beginning to assemble data into what some people call a data observatory. And what we're doing is enabling such a data observatory to be turned into an action-orientated collaborative laboratory. In order to do this, we stepped into the space between the public sector, the private sector, NGOs and research. And so in a way, working together, we're going to pull you into that space too, to work together to actually provide tools that all of the different stakeholders in Accra will be able to use. So we're not intending this platform to be put into government. We're intending it to be an independent service to all the stakeholders in the city. Once we have developed resilience.io, it will be available through a website where anyone in the world will be able to draw a red line on a globe and download this platform to be used for loading data and making decisions, and that will be available free anywhere in the world. But we're not going to be at that stage yet in this 18-month program, where the platform is going to be made available in a prototype form, which Stephen will talk about right at the end. Now here you can see the three-dimensional model that will be built, or will enable you to build in Accra, of the city. So this includes the geology under the ground, it includes the topography, it includes where there are green spaces, where there are forests, where there are agriculture, where there are roads, water, railways, and industrial plants and housing and so on. And all of that is modeled physically, but then we model the activities of humans and the ecology, and the platform calculates the resource flows that come from those integrated activities and enables scenarios of any change of those things to see what the impact is on the social, economic, and environmental performance of the city. And I have to say, this has not ever been done before in such a comprehensive way, so this is very much at the cutting edge in the world. Now, in order to connect that local model to the global changes happening to the Earth, we formed a partnership with the ICES organization, which is the International Center for Earth Simulation in Geneva. And we're connecting their assembly of Earth models to the regional model in Accra and other cities, so that actually it will be possible to look at future scenarios of climate change using the ICES models to actually understand what the climate change impacts might be in the future, what the impacts of global trade changes might be, and really any global impacts of any kind. And that will therefore mean that any scenarios for the city can be looked at in terms of climate risk, which is increasingly very important for resilience planning, but also for investors who are looking all the time now for assurance that their investments won't be undermined by climate risk. Now, why is it possible to do this now when it hasn't really been possible before? Here's a summary from IBM of some characteristics which enable what we're proposing to happen. One is the deployment of high bandwidth networks connecting to the internet, a very large number of internet users, a population of many people having mobile phones and some having smartphones, of being able to deploy sensors in our built environment and infrastructure, which are relatively cheap, that tell us what's happening and what's going on in soils, what's going on in the built environment. And also businesses are now globally integrated across the world and are integrated through internet and other communication systems. This then enables us to turn an observatory of data into a collaboratory of action change. So we can go from having Earth observation data and citizen-provided data and mapping into systems change, into investment, insurance, into bankable projects, which can be assessed in terms of climate adaptation and risk. And most particularly, we can take actions which can be shown using the platform to improve human well-being, to improve health and productivity, and so on. And underpinning this opportunity is all of the good work that's been done by the European Union under the Data Common Framework Agreements and interoperability standards for data. So we're being supported by experts within the European Union who've already developed data brokering systems to pull data into these more advanced models. This is an illustration from some of the European Union activities, which shows that data could come from community resources. It can come from various portals that the government are providing for open data. It can come from satellites and many other data sources, and we can pull that data in with a quality framework into the platform. And so what we're going to be doing is working with you to help you understand what those data standards are, and to explore what data is available in Accra and how we can align the two together over the next 18 months. Cities are very complex systems with humans at the center. And this diagram isn't intended that you should follow it particularly, but just illustrating the fact that there's a lot of interconnections between energy, water, waste, mobility, industrial systems, and so on. So the platform is enabling everyone in the city not to have to understand all of that, but to actually provide them with a background understanding of those interconnections. So in their particular intervention, maybe in energy or housing or development or water management, they can feed to other people what the implications of any change might be through the collaborative platform. We haven't developed, or we're not developing the platforms from scratch. We're pulling together world-leading models and modelers who already have developed integrated city resource systems like SimCity at Imperial College, the economics modeling of the Institute for Integrated Economics Research in Zurich, the European Forestry Institute's forestry model, and soil models like that produced at Lund University, which has been used to improve agricultural practice in Sweden by modeling the nutrient cycles and water systems in soils. So all of those are going to be brought together to enable an integrated model of human ecological activity and economics related to human value. So here we see the platform described as 4 layers of data. Data about land use and geology under the ground, data about agent activities, people, and their characteristics, their demographics, the calculation of resource flows, and then the service networks that support the human activities at the high level. So just to illustrate data coming in, here we have the satellite data coming from maybe the European Space Agency or NASA Earth observation data, which is available free at not a fine resolution, but a resolution that's adequate for these purposes. Then we have the opportunity for the agent activities and mobility to actually use mobile phone traces and other information from mobile phones from people in the city through the mobile phone operators to actually get an understanding of patterns of mobility in the city. And then the platform calculates the resource flows and is able to display them in a visualization which shows where the flows are happening and what the size and scale of them is, both internally within the region but also across the boundary between the region and the wider country. And then finally the service networks, either if there are any existing models of water systems or energy systems or communication systems, they could be plugged into this platform. But if there aren't any models, which I think is probably the case, then they can be built in the platform from a bit like a Lego kit, which can enable utility companies to build those networks to be operational within the platform. So here is a depiction of the region, and one of the critical issues will be to choose the boundary for the region, and that's something that we will have to do together. And once we choose the boundary, we then actually set up processes for human activity and ecological activity within the region. And we then model the inflow and outflow of resources across the boundary and model what's going on inside. And for example, if a product comes into the region and doesn't go out again, then we know it must be there somewhere and it can be part of the model. The model processes Each have their own models of, like a water treatment plant would have a flow of energy and a flow of wastes and a flow of water, and it would have a number of people using it. And one of the characteristics of building the platform is to create a library of those processes so they can be dropped into the city model relatively easily. And that's something we can help you to learn about as we go forward together. We've already been talking to regions around the world about the governance of this platform, and this is something that we're not going to be very prescriptive of at this stage, but just so you know the way it's gone in other places, the governance structure that most regions have decided to use is to set up some form of social enterprise to manage the platform. This will be funded in the long term by the management of capital inflows into projects in the region, which I'll come back to. And the investment fund itself probably would be managed by a community regional bank of some kind, and that bank would work in partnership with the collaboratory, which would be within a social enterprise. But this can be discussed and evolved in Accra to suit local needs. It's very important that the platform is available to be used free by the public, private sector, communities and NGOs. It has to be open to everybody to use in a collaborative way. When the platform is used like this, we believe it will create what we call collaborative intelligence. The platform is not a black box that is able to tell you about the future. It's basically an enabling tool for people to work together to find scenarios which improve outcomes, and those outcomes can be demonstrated through the metrics that come out of the platform. So if I give you a couple of examples, it will be possible to look at different policies and different economic models from the city government level or the national government level. And for example, I'll just look at housing and infrastructure as an example, because I know these are things you're particularly interested in. So if we look at housing in Accra, it will be possible to set some policies for improved energy efficiency of housing and maybe improve the quality of housing so they perform better. And at the same time to train local people to be able to build, design and build energy efficient, higher quality buildings. And I've illustrated some of the leading examples in Accra on this particular slide to show that this sort of change is already underway, but the platform will give the economic benefits of those sorts of changes. In infrastructure, I'm jumping now to a highly developed city to make a very important point that many developed cities have discovered that building roads at the early stage of development becomes a real problem later on. This is the city of Seoul in Korea that built some major highways through the city because of traffic congestion. And then they realized that these roads were always congested. They were creating pollution. They were stopping people being able to move around in the city, so they actually took them out. Well, they took them out without having an economic model to demonstrate that it would be better, but actually it turned out the economics of the city actually improved. The air quality improved. People could walk and cycle into the city centre. There was greater footfall in the shops, and everybody won. So if we have platforms that enable you to see that from the beginning, then it'll be possible to invest in infrastructure differently. And we know typically that cities that have invested around 1% of GDP a year, which in Accra would be around $40 million a year, in public transport, and also in walking and cycling routes in the city, and bus rapid transit and things like that, then actually it will be possible to take the city to a sustainable future much more quickly than by spending that money on major roads, which is what a lot of African cities are doing. So the platform will enable those sorts of decisions to be taken with an evidence base for the economics and health of the people. The platform will be accessed through what we call cockpits, which are these little green rectangles around the platform. And each of those cockpits will be a specialized access for people designing infrastructure or housing or farmers or policy and economics people. And each of the cockpits will have an education component. So if somebody wants to learn how to make the best use of the platform, they'll be able to call up some online training and teaching. Also, we plan to have a gaming version of the tool to go into local schools, so children will be able to understand the way their region and their city works, and then learn how to improve it as they get older and go through higher education. One of the other really innovative features of the platform is that we're able to put human well-being at the center of the modeling system and then connect it with mathematical algorithms to changes in air quality, water quality, and soil and nutrition in terms of ecological connection to well-being. And if, for example, air quality and water quality are improved, human health obviously will improve. And this means that health costs in terms of hospitals and doctors, clinics and so on go down, which helps the economy. But also people are more productive, which means the economy benefits as well. So when we set up the platform with these algorithms and informed by local data, then it will be possible for people to make better decisions about clean air and water because there's an economic benefit evident in that as the way forward. Also, the platform will enable us to see what skills and knowledge are needed in the future as new ideas come along. One of the most important issues, as you well know, in Africa is actually land title. And one of the fundamentals of inclusion going forward in Africa is going to be having some land title and therefore some opportunity to access improved asset values as the city develops, that goes right down to local communities. And that is going to be a huge challenge, I think, as we go forward. But the platform will be able to map and model land title and the likely increase of value that can bring to individuals in the city. So finally, coming on to financing, and how do we finance inclusive, resilient development? The platform is really designed for the things that you all know very well about, which is city planning for land use, transport planning, planning services, energy infrastructure and so on, all of which are quite expensive. And increasingly, everyone is looking for these to be done through public-private partnerships. So basically, the big opportunity is that there is a lot of capital in the world looking for both short-term and long-term investment projects that deliver returns. And that money is looking for returns that can be demonstrated in terms of social, economic, and environmental outcomes, in terms of resource flows and people usage of facilities and people's ability to pay for those facilities. So we've been talking to pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, multinational banks, and they're all very, very interested in being able to put money into cities that have this evidence base and good governance using the data in the platform, so that actually there's a much more transparent understanding of the outcomes that good projects will have. So it's going to be possible to build an innovative region investment fund that can be pulled down into projects designed using the platform. And anyone then who designs projects using a platform will automatically get access to funds if they meet the requirements of the funders. And we believe that this will build quite a bit of momentum into resilient, high-quality, inclusive development, as long as that money is drawn down into community projects and small-scale entrepreneurial activity, which the platform is able to model. A few examples of the sorts of projects that could come forward. Waste management, treating water and waste water, capturing and recycling it, better land and flood management, storage lakes and wetlands. We have a world-leading professor in China, Konjan Yu, who is very interested in helping Accra with integrated projects of storage, wetlands, water management, flood risk management. And you can see one of his projects in China on the right. He's done 200 such projects in polluted cities in China. Then there's energy efficiency, both for retrofit and for new build, as I described earlier. And this retrofit could include the industrial sector, as well as innovative new housing and commercial mixed-use developments, which can be built around new public transport infrastructure. There's integrated utility systems, particularly with renewable energy, solar energy, and the anaerobic digestion of biomass, including human waste and agricultural waste, and then water treatment linked to new industries. And it is possible to, with the digestion of biomass, to recycle the waste into replacement of fertilizer in agriculture. There is already urban farming going on in Accra, as you know, and we think there's a big opportunity to use the platform to see what opportunities there are to increase the amount of urban farming, to create jobs, to make better use of rooftops and waste spaces, and therefore to provide more local food, improve nutrition and lower costs of food. Then there is the opportunity to integrate the agriculture going on around and inside the city and forestry to improve the access to biomass waste and also demonstrate that actually they act as sinks for carbon, as I described at the beginning. Waste management can be looked at in the platform, and particularly the opportunity for upcycle waste into new products for the fashion industry, which also creates jobs and enables communities to move forward. Then there is the opportunity for so-called smart grids and smart city grids to bring in smart appliances, electric vehicles, renewable energy within the city, and the platform will enable models of those grids to be formed. And also looking at industrial wastes and industrial symbiosis of the sharing of wastes and resources into different forms of industry and manufacturing in industrial parks and so on. And finally, a very important issue is actually distributing goods and freight around the city by having consolidation centres within sort of market areas. It's possible to improve the efficiency and lower the costs and reduce the pollution associated with vehicles carrying goods around. So finally, just to show you where we've got to in our journey around the world, we're very much looking forward to working with yourselves in Accra. Here's a layout of other places where we're working, and we're hoping to create partnerships and knowledge sharing between them. So we have a demonstration region in the UK. We have, following meetings last week, likely to have 2 demonstration regions in Mongolia. That's the city of Ulaanbaatar and a region of the Gobi Desert where there's a lot of mining operations. And they're very interested in partnering with some of the mining operations in Ghana. And then we have 2 demonstration regions in China, one small village that's going to be developed and a larger development within the city. So we're looking forward to connecting you all up and knowledge sharing across the world. And we see that the universities will play a key role in supporting that research, development and education, both within Ghana and in Africa, but also across the world. And we're looking to see if we can share demonstration region outcomes across Africa, working with the African Research Initiative. And we're talking to the UN University about sharing knowledge across the world from the Africa networks to join them up with China and other countries. And I suppose I finish with a bit of philosophy, is that we all believe that we're doing this really for the young people of the future, the young people in Africa, because they're the ones that can really change the world for the better. And all of us around the table here in London really want to help to work with you to help these young people to have a better future and to have a wonderful life in Accra. I'm now going to hand over to Stephen, who will just take you through some of the actions going forward from here.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter, for the excellent introduction to the vision of the Ecological Sequestration Trust and our activities currently. What I wanted to do as part of this session, I'm sure you already have lots of questions, and so just before moving into the discussion activity, I wanted to just talk through a little bit more about the specific activities that we'll be involved in as part of the Future Cities Africa program. So the first thing to say, really, is that in order to build a Resilience.io platform, including the integrated systems model, including the user interfaces, the cockpits, the data brokerage system with data from satellites, the connections to the global Earth systems model, and so on, is going to happen. It's a phased program, and it's going to take sort of 5 years in terms of developing all of that activity, and as Peter talked about, to begin to develop demonstrators in regions in Mongolia, in China, in Europe, as well as in Accra in Ghana, to demonstrate the efficacy of how we can achieve all of those outcomes that we talked about earlier. So it's quite a long, it's a 5-year development program, it's highly innovative activities that we're engaged in. And so we're going to be talking specifically here about the 18-month prototype demonstration within the Future Cities Africa program. And just to reiterate, we're really excited to be working with you. We're a very open and collaborative organization, and you'll see shortly that there's a number of ways that we'd like to share expertise and understanding in the development process of this platform. And so just really at a broad level, and I understand that this week you'll be running through your introductions and orientation within the Future Cities Africa program with the Cities Alliance team. And so this is really how our platform fits within that activity. So you can see the objective right at the top, which is cities in Africa to become future-proofed to climate, environment, and natural resource challenges so that they are inclusive and resilient and have growing economies. And then our platform activity, the urban-rural decision tool, fits within output 3 of the Future Cities Africa program. Having said that, there's a large number of areas where there are connections outside of just this activity, which I'll come on to in a second. And essentially our aim with this 5-year program and with the with the prototype that we're building as part of this is to be able to achieve the world's first demonstration of the functionality of the Resilience.io prototype in Accra in Ghana. And this will be for one sector-specific application. And again, we can come on to that in a second. So just moving on to the activities here very quickly. So the main area that we're working up is the building of the integrated systems model. And currently we're moving quite rapidly through a series of detailed specifications. So we've completed a functional specification, and Peter talked about using the platform for investment and planning and procurement and policy making in a collaborative environment. And so we've developed that document, and that will be the beginning or the first step from which we can all refer to. Following on from that is a technical specification, a data specification, and these will describe the databases and the data structure, and it will describe the platforms and computer systems that the Resilience.io model will be using. And from that series of specifications, we have a team with the Institute of Integrated Economic Research and Imperial College London who will be helping us to program and to build the actual computer prototype and test it. And this is in advance of bringing it and using it in a prototype demonstration. The next three activities I've set in bold because I think these will be particularly pertinent given your discussions this week in the overall program. So number one is engagement. I'll come on to that in a little bit in terms of our development of collaboratory in Accra. But essentially, local ownership, when we begin to talk about data collection, when we begin to talk about water and have those discussions of what is the specific sector we should be investigating collaboratively as part of this, local ownership of those discussions is absolutely vital. And that's why one of the reasons why we've arranged this webinar with you, to get a really early beginning to those discussions and conversations. So the data collection and sector specification. For data collection, what we'll need is some data to customize the prototype to Accra. And so that will involve land use, geospatial land use data, whether you're talking of urban, residential, heavy industry, agriculture, and so on. It will require data around agent activity, what we call agent activities, and that's groups of citizens or groups of businesses and their activities in terms of production, in terms of consumption, and so on. And we will also need to develop some data collection around describing the specific sector that we'll want to investigate. And I know we've already talked about housing and transportation as two particular examples, but again, throughout this week and over the coming months, we'll be able to have much more detailed conversations about what's appropriate there. And another point about this data collection is that this very much fits in with the normative framework that you'll be exploring currently. It just provides some more detailed or granular data capture requirements, which fits within the normative framework that you're already looking at. This is all leading up to a workshop in March, and we're very excited to be coming to meet with you and all of the stakeholders and interested parties within Accra in March. And I know Alexa will be talking to you and Julian will be around what the format for that is, and that's being developed as we speak. But at that point, we would like to introduce to the wider community some of the standards that we'll be looking to use in terms of data collection and defining what that sector investigation might look like. And then that presents an ongoing set of activities within Accra with your team and with your contacts, leading up to the actual prototype demonstration workshop, which is scheduled for early in 2016. So that happens concurrently as we're building and programming the model and the software. We'll be able to engage in terms of data collection to feed into that. And then just before we move on to questions, there's a couple of other things that you probably picked up from Peter's presentation, where Test has expertise and global networks that will be very happy to work with you and to bring this to your work within the FCA Future Cities Africa program. And so one of those is one of our colleagues based in Beijing is a global expert in setting up investment funds. So he'll be able to do a study looking at existing and future funding opportunities that might help to realize some of these interventions that we just heard about. And likewise, we'll be able to work with you and our colleague Catherine Allenson, who's expert at developing what we're calling, and what you heard earlier is the collaboratory or the collaborative laboratory. And that really brings together interested stakeholders from all of the different sectors, from the private sector, government and local governments, from academia, and from community sector. And we find that by bringing those together and by applying an integrated or a systems thinking methodology, then great things happen and real solutions are able to be discussed and then overcome. And the whole principle here is by looking at the interrelationships between systems. This is exactly what the model has been set up to do. So as I said, this is a very quick overview of the activities that we're going to be collaborating on as part of the Future Cities Africa program. I'm really excited to be working with you and look forward to come to meet you in March. And I think at this point we'll hand over to an open discussion, and we'll look forward to your reflections or questions that you have on what you've seen today. So thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve and Peter. I think just before we move on to the questions, Steve obviously mentioned the workshop in Ghana, and Catherine introduced herself at the beginning of the webinar, but I'd just like to give Catherine the chance to speak a little bit more about the engagement, drawing on the work that we've already been doing in Dorset and in Mongolia. So Catherine, would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of points, really. Firstly, that this is quite a lot to take in, and I appreciate that. So please do feel free to email us at any time for clarification, and of course we'll leave the presentation with you hereafter. But on the collaboration aspect, firstly, this is not something we're doing for us. This is something that's very much we're looking to the leadership of local people to own eventually. Okay. We'll be there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, okay, sorry. So we're looking to the local leadership to guide us as we move into the countries, and for that we are already indebted to Cities Alliance for bringing us with them into their existing organisation in Ghana. So thank you very much for that. And we are really quite excited to bring together a new group of people, perhaps people that we don't yet know, to form the collaboratory, the steering group that will lead this project into the future. And it'll be quite a lot of work, I think, in the next 3 or 4 weeks to get that group of people together. It may not materialize immediately, but certainly we'll have to explore a lot of different avenues to bring together a cross-sector group of people from government, from third sector, private sector, and obviously the academic sector. In other countries, we found this takes quite some time, but in fact the people are sort of almost self-selecting. It's those people who want to see a different future for Accra, a more sustainable and resilient future for Accra, who come forwards, and that's definitely to be encouraged. And as we move forward through this particular workshop and then future workshops, I think we'll end up with a very good core of people with whom we can co-develop the tools and, as my colleague Stephen said, to be involved in the data collection and the project and sector and then project selection as we move forwards. I don't want to take up too much time. I think it's more appropriate that we hand over to you for your questions. So I'll speak to you via email. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. So as a reminder, we've got 2 types of participant for this webinar. So those attendees who are viewing live online, just a reminder that you can submit questions using the online form there's a link to on that page. And then those who are involved in the interactive session can obviously ask your questions verbally. However, you will have been muted throughout the presentation, so you'll need to unmute yourself before you ask your question. And you can do this using the unmute microphone button at the top in the center of your screen. Okay, so I will pass over to ask whether you have any questions.
The Q&A button seems to be disabled for some reason, so we can't.
Okay.
No, we can't hear you, Marie. Tell Marie you can't hear.
Okay, we can't hear you at the moment. So let's just see if we can unmute you.
The chat board is on, but the Q&A board is not.
Okay. Yes, that's a good point. So we can actually see your questions in the group chat. So the blue speech bubble at the side, if you are able to click on that, then you can ask your questions by typing them in the text box at the side. So yes, can see your questions, Marie, Alexa.
Q&A slide.
Q&A's on.
appropriate. It's quite a specific one, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the questions, so at the workshop in March, we talked about the groupings that we want to be present, including private sector and academia. And there's a question posed about how many people and who those people should be for effective engagement. So perhaps, Catherine, would you like to take that one?
She has already.
Okay. Cool. So Catherine, would you be able to answer that question for the online viewers who cannot see the chat session at the side?
Hi, yes, sorry, I was wondering whether we might have a little go at sorting out the sound. It would make this so much easier. It's going to be extremely difficult otherwise to convey a Q&A. Should we just work through a couple of things that might be the sticking blocks? Because, Alexa, we could hear you when your Skype was on, so we know your computer is working. I'm just wondering, do you see boxes at the top of the screen which are red? Just nod or shake your head. No. Okay. Andre, is there anywhere else they should be looking to enable or disable the microphone?
No, not if it's working elsewhere.
Alexa, on the left-hand side, you have the Q&A, the little capture button, the sound, the control room. At the bottom, there are some more. Are there any symbols down there to enable or disable a microphone? It must be somewhere on your screen. And could we please check our end that they're not muted? Alexa, under the fifth little button on the left-hand side, it's called Control Room. If you click it, it will tell you whether you're muted at our end or at your end. It doesn't tell you? No. Okay. And I'm assuming you've got your own volume turned up at the bottom right hand of your screen. Yep, full up. Yep, okay. Okay, Andre, I've tried my best. Any other clues on technical ability to turn them on or off our end?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, Alexa, one last resort. Perhaps you could switch on your Skype because we can hear you that way. I can call you on Skype. I'll do that. You're set to away from your desk at the moment, but if you could change that, and I'll do the same. Hi, Alexa.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hello, fantastic. Okay, we might get a bit of feedback, but at least I can hear you.
Exactly.
Perfect. Do you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a huge echo.
Can you say something just to make the test if this works?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, you're coming across with a very bad echo on our side.
Wait, can you talk again and I will mute from our side to look if this is better?
Yes, I will also escape the webinar, which might be causing the feedback.
Yes. No, we can't hear them now.
It seems now it's better, yes?
Yes, I can hear you, but I've escaped the webinar, so they can't hear me now.
Ah, okay, but now it's much better. Perfect. Okay. Catherine, should I present?
She's now gone out of the room.
She went out now of the room, so she cannot talk with the others, right?
That's right, but you should be able to. You have them on your screen, no?
Oh yeah, we can write them via the screen, but only you can hear us now. No, Stephen said he can hear us now.
Okay. Yes, we
hear us, Stephen?
Good to know.
Oh, so
yes,
it's working now. You can hear us. Can someone talk on the webinar side?
No, Stephen said he can hear us now.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Excellent.
Yes, perfectly. Hi. So thank you very much first for the presentation, which we really enjoyed. I think it was a lot of information for the first introduction. I want to present the nice team which we have now in place. I will turn around the camera first. So here you have Ogene. Maybe you can just present yourself briefly.
Hi, I'm Ohine Safo. I'm the country team leader.
So here we have the senior urban specialist.
Hello, I'm Bernard. Nice to be with you.
And on my right side, you know him already, Julian.
Hi, everyone.
Skype call so that you can also speak.
Okay. So have you seen our first questions? I think the first questions which we had was mainly concerning the workshop in March. Oh, now we can see you.
Oh, we can see everyone perfectly now, suddenly.
Oh, hi, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
You hear us still? You hear us?
Alexa, I can
Yes.
hear you, but I'm trying to get the others to join on Skype, but they're not accepting the call. I don't know.
Wow.
We can hear you,
Okay.
Alexa.
We've got a great picture of them now.
We can see him very clearly, Stephen, now.
Yeah, Stephen, answer your Skype, please.
I think we can all hear each other now. So should we move on to the questions?
Okay.
Okay,
So we
go for it.
in the chat. So
Okay, can you hear me? Steve, nod your head, yes or no, if you can hear me.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask the first question. So the first question really relates, first of all, fantastic presentation. First of all, a fantastic presentation. I think your team did a fantastic job of a complex technology, and it was very clear for us. Even though you couldn't hear us, we could hear everything you said, and we very much appreciated the presentation. The first question that we had was around, if we have this workshop in March, and it's the kickoff workshop, and we have the multiple sectors to invite, including the private sector, academia, government, NGOs, etc. The question is, how big a workshop does it need to be effective and efficient? In other words, can the workshop be too big and be destroyed by the size of the number of participants, or is there an optimal size that we should be aiming at?
Yeah, well,
Yes, Catherine here. In the previous two workshops we've held at this nature, actually it's now 3, we've had between 40 and 60 people each time. The upper end of that number seems to work well. And my only caveat was because we had to move this project along a little swifter, and Stephen is very eager to lock down the sector as quickly as possible so we can move into data collection, that I thought we'll need to do some pre-discussions, or we'll need to make sure that there are a sufficient number of people from each sector represented at the workshop, which might then increase the number of people we need to invite.
All right. My preference would be if we went through a pre-process and we selected a sector in discussions with stakeholders in Accra, and in full consultation with you, and then we designed the workshop around that particular sector.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that, so long as Stephen and Peter are happy with that approach as well.
Hi, it's Peter here. I really don't think we should do that because I think it's necessary to engage the wider community first, and then to select once there is broad understanding of what we're trying to do. I think if we start with a sector, can you not hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Sorry, we didn't hear that at all.
But Peter, I think he's not in favor of this approach.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and then we lost him.
I was saying I really don't think that's a good idea because I think you ought to get a general understanding of what we're trying to do first, and then the sector selection can then be an example of the big picture. I think it's as well to engage the big picture first, and then move into a selection afterwards, because it's very important that it seemed to be a holistic process and not just concentrated on one part of the problem.
Okay, I hear that, and I appreciate that. It makes sense. Are you then saying that we should have as wide a participation at the workshop, and then part of the workshop itself will be the presentation of the big picture, and then part of the workshop will be to start looking at which would be the sector we choose?
Yes, I think that's the right thing to do. And there's no problem in getting broad agreement on the sector from other sectors, I think. And in a way, that's a very positive thing.
Okay, I have no problem with that approach either.
Maybe, Peter? Yeah, I appreciate this also, your opinion, because we were discussing how to approach this. The question was then also if we do in the first workshop a pre-selection of sectors. So not all the sectors, that based on the team, what they will do now and have the first discussion with partners here in preparing the workshop, that we go into the workshop with, for example, 4 sectors. That you have, it can be whatever, it can be waste, water, energy, and transport, for example, so that we tighten it a little bit up and just focus one sector out of 4, for example. Or should we leave it open completely?
I would suggest that we should leave it really open, because then, you know, it's an open, transparent sort of process, and everybody feels they've got a chance. And then, you know, I think the group can decide. We're very keen that people there should decide, and I think it should come out of the conversations.
Okay.
Okay, I hear that. So the call's failed.
No.
Are you still on board? Call failed.
I am. But Catherine is there.
Catherine's there. I hear that. And
I'm on Skype, but I can't hear anything that my own team are saying, unfortunately.
Yeah, I heard Peter. It's very soft, and I hear.
Yeah, let's just switch to Skype, guys, if it works.
Why don't we just switch completely to Skype now?
Yeah, agreed.
Can we do a group call and just call us back with a group call?
I'm trying, but they keep not accepting.
Okay.
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 What about the other people? Well, 50 units long and more.
So that changes a little bit the panorama, right?
Hi?
It's mute now.
Yes.
It changes a little bit the panorama if we do it like that.
Yeah. All right. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud, yeah. And Rachel can hear you loud and clear between the others two, right? We're all together?
I think Peter's still to come on board.
I think that what we need to do is, because of the sound issues, I'm really sorry, but the people that are viewing online will probably not be able to take part in the question and answer session.
Okay.
But you are very welcome to send your questions through afterwards, and we will be able to answer them by email.
All right.
For those of you with the interactive session, we can obviously carry on using Skype.
Okay. All right. Catherine, we seem to have lost everyone except Rachel Kemp. So we have two.
They're all together in the same room.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're also all together in one room here. Okay. And
can you add Federico? He seems to. Do you have his Skype?
No, I don't actually, but I can find him. Can you tell me and I'll add him?
Okay, wait. I will send you. What is his Skype name?
Give a messenger and then I'll add him.
Federico Silva, Lima. Federico Silva. Okay, but I think we can continue right now, right?
you'll continue?
We're all now on board?
Yes.
Yes.
And Catherine, you're taking the call from Federico, because if I take the call, it will not work.
It's saying no results found for Silver 78. Is there a dot or a gap?
Okay, wait, let me check.
Maybe under that gap. But this is email federico.silva@DigitalAlliance.
Yes, no dot at the last dot. The last dot.
Let's just get the thing going.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't. He's not listed under F Silver at 60.
Okay, let's just proceed. We'll brief him afterwards. We can brief him later.
Yeah.
Do you hear Peter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
He's not hearing us. He said it's a catastrophe if we do pre-selection of sectors. You heard that? He's
Okay.
not very amused.
That's fine. That's fine. So.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get back. Can you hear us? Yes, we can hear you. You've lost it.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm waiting for Catherine to
Okay.
Okay.
Federico's on board now as well. All right. Federico, can you hear us?
I'm John. I'm here.
Perfect. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Federico. Okay, so let's just get back to our discussions. As I understood it, we're looking for a workshop of roughly 60 people who represent a cross-sector of interests that all are united by their interests in the future development of Accra. Okay? And that we will not select in any way a sector before the workshop, and that the workshop will be designed in a way that presents the broad picture, and will be designed in a way that systems are presented and that a system is then selected at that particular workshop. Is that correct?
And just to add on to that, it will be a long series of activities if there's the possibility of bringing together a more smaller group after the workshop, whether it's a day after or 2 days after, to begin to look in a bit more detail at data collection requirements and to look in a bit more detail at describing that sector, then that would work wonderfully. And I think we've already, actually Alexa and Julian, you have an outline program that
yes.
fits with that.
So that's perfect. That's absolutely on board. There's no problem at all. So it's a big workshop to start with, the big picture, what we're trying to achieve, the objectives, and closing with a selection. The battery's running low. Are we going to want to? Okay, and closing with a selection of a system, followed on the next day by a working group drawn from the group that was at the previous day workshop to look at the specifics of the data collection.
So, I suppose you could say it's a scaled-up version of today's webinar.
Yes.
Most of the time at the workshop will be focused on the collaboratory, on the
yes.
pictures, and on the opportunities. And then towards the end, we can then begin to drill down to decisions and priorities within the Future Cities Africa program and what we're able to do in terms of demonstrating the prototype.
Okay. All right. I wonder if you could just give me an indication of the type of person, not in a generic sense specifically. Are we talking about captains of industry or middle managers in industry? Who are we talking about?
I think that it rather depends on the sector. Certainly in the private sector, we have had deputy CEOs and CEOs of companies join us.
Okay.
Same at banks, with banks. Sometimes they'll be perhaps head of departments if they have an eco-banking department, financial sector. In the third sector, we've definitely attracted the CEOs and directors of individual charities.
Okay.
Or those with remit under an environmental banner.
Right.
At local government level, it's rather dependent if there's a separate department which is involved with the environment or, for instance, your urban planning. I imagine that more than one individual would like to come because the departments will be broad, and we welcome that. Higher up the ladder in government, we have had some ministerial representation. Certainly we've had great interest from ministries of environment, ministries of agriculture and industry, ministry of planning and construction. Beyond that, perhaps only deputies or heads of departments have come, so in the more fringe ministries. But usually to get them to come, we have had to hold pre-meetings.
Okay, that's what we will do.
It's not enough just to invite them to come along for a first show. It's usually required that we go and spend time with them beforehand.
Yes, now I understand that fully. So our job will be to knock on doors, to explain what it's all about, and to make sure people come to the workshop. So that we will take very seriously. We're on the same page. We're basically aiming for the most senior people we can get to the workshop from the various sectors.
It helps. It certainly helps.
Yeah, okay, no problem. The one confusion I do see, the one problem I do see, and I'll have to discuss
projects.
Yes. Okay, but the one issue I do see, which we'll have to discuss how we do it, is because we're working in 13 assemblies, 13 districts that make up the city region. If we were to get planners and CEOs from each one of that already, that would be just from that sector alone, it would be 30 people, which is half the audience that you're looking at. So we have to be selective, I suppose, or just recognize that it might be a bit padded on the one side. So
yes, we haven't encountered that in the same way in other regions before. So either we just have to push up the numbers slightly, or as you say, be selective. Although it would be a shame to be selective at the outset.
Yes,
I think I would go for more numbers on the first one, because I'm passionate about everyone feeling involved, and I think bearing in mind the idea is to integrate them.
Okay.
We should probably expand the numbers.
Okay, so given that the first one is really an introductory workshop, it's a workshop to share objectives and to get real buy-in. We will keep in touch about how big it's getting, but let's just say that it probably will be more than 60 given that particular circumstance.
Yeah, and on the day, of course, for personal and business reasons, people tend to drop out. So,
yes.
But at least if they've had the opportunity to come, then it's their decision, and it changes the dynamic of everything.
Right. Okay. So we're all on the same page. Any discussions?
I have one question, Peter. You will be joining the mission, right? The question is, how long are you coming? Are you going to be a week here also? Also to look, okay, with whom to arrange meetings concerning the ministries, whom do you want to meet? Tomorrow we are going, second question, we're going to Accra, to the city, which you already presented also in your presentation, which is one of the selected cities of the 100 Resilience program. Have you thought about possible interlinks, which we should consider if we meet the contact person tomorrow?
Yes, we have, but the 100 Resilient Cities Initiative are considering the Resilience.io platform as a platform to partner with the whole program. So that discussion seems to be going on their side. So no decisions have been made, but they are considering it at the high level within the organisation in New York.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So any other questions on the?
Just one more point on that. They said it would be really useful to have one or two cities to demonstrate it before they decide to adopt it. So Accra can become that. It's one of those two cities, maybe.
I can get that one.
Okay.
Please can we discuss the date of the workshop while we have Peter on the line, because he has traveled to Brazil during the week that we pre-selected, so we need to readdress that.
We have to readdress the dates?
Yeah.
Why? Can you repeat, please?
Peter's going to Brazil.
Okay.
So we need to find
So we have foreseen so far in our last discussions from the 23rd to the 27th, this week of March.
That's correct. Peter, I believe, is away from the 24th now. Is that correct, Peter?
I've definitely been invited to a meeting on the 26th and the 27th in Brazil. So it would be very much better for me if it was the week before, but I would imagine there's lots of other reasons why I can't be.
Is there any chance of being the week after?
There's Easter.
There's Easter.
The week after is Easter, which makes it difficult for everybody, I would have thought.
And the other week also, yeah.
The other thing I was thinking is we might be able to split the week. If we were to come on Wednesday the 18th, that would leave 3 days beforehand. We could hold the workshop on a Monday or a Tuesday, and Peter can fly on Wednesday, and Stephen can pick up with his groups then later during that week.
Yeah, we can think about that. Yeah. Let's not take now a final decision, because then we have to discuss it here in the team as well, because so far we have planned as foreseen so far 19 until 27. But let's look at the second option you mentioned, 18 until 25.
Thank you.
No, not the
Yeah, we can't push it too forward because we've got a lot of doors to knock on, a lot of meetings to set up.
Yeah,
You're moving it here.
That's the proposal, so we can decide 18 until 25th instead of 23 to 27.
Yeah, because then this is Easter, isn't it?
No, exactly. We're talking a week. Yeah.
Okay, so
we'll discuss it. We can come.
Can we just get finalize a proposal tomorrow on that?
Yes.
Okay. My only concern is I don't want to push it too much earlier because of the time constraints in setting up the workshop.
Agreed.
Okay.
Which you also mentioned, Katrin.
Yeah. So we really do need to make sure we give ourselves justice and time to deliver on this. Okay, but as it stands, I think it's still very doable if we do it in the week of the 18th, as you suggest. Okay, but we'll have to finalize that because we'll have to start sending invitations out and fixing it in everyone's diaries here.
18 to 20.
Okay, that's fine.
You have other questions?
No, sticking the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of stuff, product regressions and all that.
Yeah.
But it's not to chew on, and then tomorrow we can nail up a few points. Get back to
Yeah, exactly. Katrin? Yeah, we're discussing maybe at the moment there are no further questions from the team, but we will get tomorrow, we will have time for a further brainstorming concerning the new dates and the workshop. And it would be great if we can just get in touch with you between tomorrow and Friday.
Yes, I'm available, and so is the rest of the team, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So we started the process of inducting the FCA. So we would have told the minister and various key stakeholders about it. So we really started that process. I think on this Friday we have quite a big engagement with a lot of stakeholders where we'll introduce the workshop, what it's about, and really get the process underway. I have no doubt we'll get the right people to the meeting and it'll be a great success.
Excellent.
All right.
Something more from your side, or Peter from your side, something which we should consider?
No, I think we're all happy here.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Peter, for a wonderful. Thank you, Peter, for a great presentation. Steve, for some really good clarification afterwards. And thank you, Catherine, for all the guidance you'll be giving us in organizing the workshop. I'm sure with our new team here, we'll get it all together, and we'll keep in touch on a frequent basis until the workshop happens.
Great to be in touch with you all.
All right. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Okay. Bye.